What if I told you that one of the most powerful women in the world once believed she was worthless? That behind the billion-dollar empire, the global influence, and the countless lives touched, lies a story of unimaginable darkness transformed into extraordinary light? Today, we're diving deep into the story of Oprah Winfrey. Not just the media mogul you know, but the broken child who refused to stay broken. This is a story about how the deepest wounds can become the source of our greatest strength, and how one woman's journey from trauma to triumph changed the world forever. Welcome to Light After Dark. I'm your host, and today we're exploring how Oprah Winfrey found light in the darkest places imaginable. To understand Oprah's light, we must first understand her darkness. Born on the 29th of January, 1954, in rural Mississippi, Oprah Gail Winfrey entered a world that seemed determined to break her before she could even begin. Her story begins in poverty so extreme that she wore dresses made from potato sacks. But poverty was just the beginning of her challenges. Born to an unmarried teenage mother, Oprah was shuffled between relatives, never finding the stability every child desperately needs. At age 6, she was sent to live with her grandmother, Hattie Mae Lee, on a pig farm with no indoor plumbing. While her grandmother provided some structure through strict discipline and education, the seeds of trauma were already being planted. But the real darkness began when Oprah was 9 years old. She was sent to live with her mother in Milwaukee, and it was there that her childhood was stolen from her. She became the victim of repeated sexual abuse by male relatives and family friends, a nightmare that would continue for years. Imagine being a child, already struggling with poverty and instability, now carrying the weight of unspeakable trauma. Oprah later revealed that she was raped at age 9, and the abuse continued through her early teens. She felt worthless, damaged, and completely alone. At 14, she became pregnant as a result of the abuse. The baby was born prematurely and died shortly after birth. Here was a teenage girl who had already experienced more trauma than many adults ever face, now dealing with the loss of a child under the most tragic circumstances. This was Oprah's rock bottom, a teenage girl who felt completely powerless, carrying shame that wasn't hers to bear, in a world that seemed to offer no hope for someone like her. But sometimes, it's in our darkest moments that the first glimmers of light begin to appear. When Oprah was 14, something remarkable happened. Her father, Vernon Winfrey, stepped into her life in a way that would change everything. He took her to live with him in Nashville, and for the first time, someone saw potential in this broken teenager. Vernon was strict but loving. He demanded excellence in education and behavior. Most importantly, he saw something in Oprah that she couldn't see in herself: intelligence, talent, and worth. It was in Nashville that Oprah discovered the power of words. She excelled in school, joined the speech team, and found that when she spoke, people listened. For a girl who had been silenced by trauma, finding her voice was revolutionary. At 17, she entered and won a beauty pageant, Miss Black Tennessee. But more than the crown, what mattered was the scholarship that came with it, leading to her enrollment at Tennessee State University. Then came the moment that would change her trajectory forever. While still in high school, she was offered a job at a local radio station. The station manager heard her speak and knew immediately that this young woman had something special. But here's what's remarkable about this part of Oprah's story. She almost didn't take the opportunity. The trauma she carried made her doubt her own worth. She nearly turned down the radio job because she didn't believe she deserved it. This is a pattern we see often in survivors of trauma, and even when opportunities present themselves, the internal voice of shame and unworthiness can be louder than the voice of possibility. But Oprah took the leap. At 19, she became the first African-American female news anchor at Nashville's WTVF television. She was making history, but she was still carrying the weight of her past. What's crucial to understand is that success didn't immediately heal her trauma. She was achieving professional milestones while still struggling internally with the pain of her childhood. This is the reality for many trauma survivors. External success and internal healing don't always move at the same pace. During this time, Oprah made a decision that would become central to her philosophy. She would use her pain as a source of strength rather than a source of shame. In 1976, Oprah moved to Baltimore to co-anchor the evening news at WJZ television. She was 22 years old and climbing the ladder of traditional journalism. But Baltimore would teach her something crucial, that her greatest strength wasn't in being what others expected her to be, but in being authentically herself. Traditional news anchoring required a certain detachment, a professional distance from the stories being reported. But Oprah found this impossible. When she reported on tragic stories, she would cry on air. When covering uplifting news, her genuine joy would shine through. Her news director criticized her for being too emotional for news. In the traditional media landscape of the 1970s, this emotional authenticity was seen as a weakness, especially for a black woman in a predominantly white male industry. But here's where Oprah's story takes a beautiful turn. What the news industry saw as a flaw, talk television would see as a superpower. In 1978, she was moved to co-host a morning talk show called People Are Talking. For the first time, her emotional intelligence, her ability to connect with people's pain and joy, became her greatest asset rather than her biggest liability. This is where Oprah began to understand that her trauma had given her something invaluable, the ability to hold space for other people's pain. Because she had experienced deep suffering, she could sit with others in their suffering without trying to fix it or minimize it. The show became a huge success locally, but more importantly, it gave Oprah a glimpse of her true calling. She wasn't meant to just report on people's stories, she was meant to help them heal through the telling of those stories. During her Baltimore years, Oprah also began her own healing journey in earnest. She started therapy and began to understand that her childhood trauma wasn't a life sentence. This was revolutionary thinking for the time, especially in communities where therapy was often stigmatized. She later said that therapy saved her life. It was in therapy that she learned to separate her worth from what had been done to her. She learned that she was not damaged goods, but a person with incredible resilience and strength. This period in Baltimore was crucial because it was where Oprah learned to transform her pain into purpose. Every interview she conducted, every person she connected with was healing not just for them, but for her as well. In 1984, Oprah made the move that would change television forever. She was recruited to host a failing morning show in Chicago called AM Chicago. The show was in last place in the ratings, competing against the king of morning television, Phil Donahue. But within months, something extraordinary happened. AM Chicago wasn't just beating Donahue, it was revolutionizing what television could be. Where other talk shows focused on sensationalism or kept conversations surface level, Oprah went deeper. She brought a level of vulnerability and authenticity that television had never seen before. Here's what made Oprah different. She didn't just interview guests about their problems, she shared her own. In a media landscape where hosts maintained professional distance, Oprah broke down walls by revealing her own struggles. She talked openly about her history of sexual abuse, her struggles with weight, her feelings of unworthiness. In doing so, she gave millions of people permission to acknowledge their own pain and begin their own healing journeys. The show was renamed The Oprah Winfrey Show in 1985, and by 1986, it had gone national. But what happened next was more than just television success, it was a cultural phenomenon. Oprah created what became known as appointment television. People didn't just watch her show, they scheduled their lives around it. Why? Because for many viewers, Oprah's show was the first place they had ever seen their own struggles reflected and validated. For survivors of abuse, people struggling with addiction, those dealing with family trauma, or anyone who felt different or broken, Oprah's show became a lifeline. It was a place where pain was acknowledged, healing was possible, and transformation was celebrated. But Oprah's influence went beyond just talking about problems. She consistently focused on solutions, growth, and the potential for redemption. This wasn't just television, it was mass therapy, spiritual guidance, and hope distribution all rolled into one. During this time, Oprah also made another crucial decision. She took control of her show's production, becoming one of the first African American women to own her own production company. This wasn't just about money, it was about maintaining control over the message of hope and healing she wanted to share. By the late 1980s, The Oprah Winfrey Show was reaching more than 10 million viewers daily, but the numbers only tell part of the story. The real impact was in the countless letters Oprah received from people saying her show had saved their lives, helped them leave abusive relationships, or inspired them to seek help for addiction or mental health issues. By the 1990s, Oprah had transformed from a television host into something much more significant, a cultural force for healing and transformation. But she didn't stop at television. She launched Harpo Productions, created O Magazine, and built a media empire worth billions. But every venture had the same core mission: to help people live their best lives. Her book club didn't just sell books, it created a culture of reading and learning. Her magazine didn't just feature celebrities, it focused on personal growth and spiritual development. Her philanthropy didn't just give money away, it invested in education and opportunity. Perhaps most remarkably, Oprah used her platform to destigmatize mental health, therapy, and healing. At a time when these topics were taboo, especially in certain communities, Oprah made it okay to seek help, to acknowledge pain, and to work toward healing. She also became a powerful advocate for survivors of abuse, using her own story to help others find their voices. The courage it took for her to speak publicly about her trauma cannot be overstated, especially given the additional stigma faced by Black women who speak about abuse. In 2007, she opened the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls in South Africa, investing $40 million of her own money to educate girls who reminded her of herself. Brilliant children born into challenging circumstances who needed someone to believe in them. This wasn't just charity, it was Oprah coming full circle, becoming for other children what she had needed as a child, someone who saw their potential and invested in their future. Today, Oprah Winfrey's story continues to illuminate the darkness for millions around the world. From a child who was told she was worthless to a woman who has touched billions of lives, her journey proves that our deepest wounds can become the source of our greatest gifts. Her story teaches us that healing isn't about forgetting our pain, it's about transforming it into purpose. It shows us that authenticity isn't weakness, it's revolutionary strength. And it demonstrates that the light we find in our own darkness can become a beacon for others finding their way. Oprah once said, "The greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change his future by merely changing his attitude." Her life is living proof of this truth. So remember this, whatever darkness you're walking through, whatever trauma you're carrying, whatever shame is trying to define you, you are not your circumstances. You are not your past. You are the light that can emerge from that darkness. And that light has the power to change not just your life, but the lives of everyone you touch. This is the message of Light After Dark, that no matter how deep the darkness, the light always finds a way through. Thank you for joining us today. Remember to like this video if Oprah's story inspired you, subscribe for more stories of triumph over adversity, and share this with someone who needs to hear that their darkness doesn't define them, their light does.